plastics, and now it's all plastic, except for the cardboard. The cardboard is separate.
Right.
That's because there's a big box for
Do
permanent.
you guys have a preference where do you want to sit?
Well, my side isn't that good, so I won't say it.
Okay, cool. I'm all about that. But
I do know that just putting in loose is that there's no value in trying to yeah. Well, then I've got two bins. I'll put this jar and that's still separate. I can't throw it all. And so on a windy day, I'll put the one with all this stuff on top of the table. Yeah. To my knowledge, Cindy went to Denver. And had heard that in the work they sort of use air to blow them off the conveyor belt because they have thing kind of.
Just one? What? They're saying this. I love that. Same dots. Pro sports.
Can you hear me? Just testing the mic. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Is it loud enough?
My brother had the same thing.
How's that? Much better again.
Shopping bag.
I can't get credit for the I'll tell you, whoever came up with this, I owe you money. Because that is just like, I look at that list, that would have taken, I could have put down that for a month, and I would have never.
Get everyone to No, oh, yeah.
If you want to go there, oh yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. But I
She used to come to
it's all set up.
We have a Spain trip. Does that put you to sleep? No, not quite like. Tired by. Tired you was
I think I saw you in the the climate summit.
Trying to establish what this is the only way.
Got a memory like Thank you. So cute. I didn't have a jail. There's a movie that just got
I'd hate to be the guy who's trying to
There is a light right there.
Get up to the line.
I didn't expect to see Carlisle.
Like the
I didn't expect to see Carlisle people. Stuff we can learn.
It's like that material is the same thing like church bottom, when it's just black. A lot of them see black.
I guess
The rinstone.
copper can, powder, what's USC?
There's two ways that's on it. Yeah, you should go to the track. But afterwards, when I go to hamburgers and just make that all one quick rinse right underneath.
I need to get a bunch of coffee. Oh,
Yeah, that's fine for that. It's the style you just don't have a value. You just have a lot of value.
32.9, so I'm trying to catch both.
Fraction of it actually is quite valuable. There's actually a lot of internal, there's a lot of internal water that you the China water.
It appears that way, doesn't it? Yeah. Which is what's so wonderful and refreshing about this sunrise view. But young people are bored. That's the great. Exactly. Give us some spread. Yeah, sustainable development.
Hello, can everybody hear me? No? Can everybody hear me now? Hello.
I wish I could do the whistle thing, but I can't. Thank you.
Hi.
Everybody, get started. Thank you for being patient.
Hi, can you hear me with the mic?
Yes.
Is that loud enough? Okay, great. My name's Mina Jane. I'm the Programming and Community Engagement Librarian here in the library, and I'm so happy that you're all here for this really important talk. Marcia and Cindy and Diane will give you much more information about it, but I just wanted to say thank you for supporting the library, supporting this cause, and coming out on this beautiful night to spend your time indoors with us. Couple of just housekeeping things. If you need an assisted listening device, we have a couple here on this table. Also, if you need to use the bathroom, it's down the hall to the left. And I left out our programming brochures because we have a lot of other programs coming up in the future that are going to be super, super interesting that you don't want to miss out on. So please grab one on your way out, or you won't be bored. But if you happen to be bored, you can pick one up to read during the day. That'll be a sign to you that you're need to bring it up a little bit. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Marcia Jens, who you probably know is a climate change warrior in this town.
Well, warrior or not, I'm here to introduce our panel for the evening and to thank the library for hosting not just this, but a number of environmental programs over the fall. The program tonight is sponsored by the Sustainable Lexington Waste Task Force, the Lexington Global Warming Action Coalition, and Cary Memorial Library. And I want to introduce our panel. One of our panelists is over there, who is Robert Beaudoin, who has been working in Lexington for over 18 years as superintendent, currently superintendent of environmental services, but he came on originally as the pay-as-you-throw coordinator, which was a short-lived experience that we won't talk about tonight. But led to, I think, some real awareness and positive motion on trying to reduce waste in Lexington. And some of that Robert's been able to carry through over the years. Robert manages our waste and recycling contract, as well as the Hartwell Ave composting and waste sites, hazardous waste site. And over here we have Diane Pursley and Cindy Ahrens, who have put together our presentation, Let's Rethink Recycling. Sustainable Lexington's Waste Task Force, and a longtime leader of the Lexington Public Schools Green Teams, with roles in Estabrook, Diamond, and now LHS. Cindy Ahrens is a member of the Waste Task Force, a future Sustainable Lexington member, and a member of the Lexington Public School Green Teams with leadership roles at Bowman, Clark, and also now the high school. So these women have gone through from when their kids were in elementary school now to high school, and they know a lot that they're going to be sharing with you today. So with that, we'll start with a presentation, and Robert will pick up with his comments, and then we'll go to a panel. Thank you very much for being here. Oh, one last thing, I'm going to send this around. It's a sheet where you can write down if you'd like information about this evening's from slides or want to follow up with us, please give us your information.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. Tonight we are going to talk about rethinking recycling. There were some changes, there continue to be so many changes in the recycling market, but we're also going to talk a lot about how to reduce the waste we generate in general. Like I said, we'll talk about recycling, and then very nitty-gritty rules as to what to put in the blue bin, what not to put in the blue bin, where to put various things. But then, like I said, we're going beyond recycling tonight. So we're going to talk about other things we can do with waste and even how to prevent waste so that we don't have to worry about recycling it or where to dispose of it. And finally, advocacy. We are going to talk about, in our household, where we put things, but there are also larger things we can do as individual citizens to advocate for change at a larger level with producers and at the state level of government.
So, oh, this one seems louder. Is this one louder? Do you want to get the other one? Sure. The one that's over there? Ooh, such a nice mic. So, I bet a lot of you have heard news stories, read newspaper articles about the China ban. It's got a lot of different names surrounding that. But this has happened. China was a big importer of recyclable material, and they decided they didn't want to take a lot of it anymore. They have a lot of their own waste that they have to deal with. And that was really, that plus other things was sort of a wake-up call for the recycling industry. And I think it's good that it's now a wake-up call for us as consumers and users of this to really look at what waste we're generating and what should we be doing with it. So because China went away, the markets were a lot more limited. There also is an issue with facilities, local facilities that can actually do the recycling. That's decreased a lot because just the market isn't there, and if they can't make money, they're not going to survive. You'll also probably have heard of a lot of towns and cities have stopped some of their recycling because of the cost going up. Here in Lexington, we do not want to stop that. We want to remain committed to recycling, but we want to recycle right. We want to do the right thing. We want to become more aware of what we're using and the proper way to dispose it. And then, as Diane mentioned, a bunch of other R's: reduce, reuse, repurpose, repair, rot. Rot's a lot of fun.
Okay, so what hasn't changed? Have you all heard of the term wish cycling? That has been in existence for a long time, and that's really bad, but it's good for our guilty conscience. That means throwing non-recyclables in the blue bin so we feel less guilty about creating waste. So we took this particular thing, we don't know what to do with it, let's put it in the recycle, it got recycled. And it won't get recycled, and it just causes problems at the facility. So one of the things that is not recyclable, even though it may have a number on it and a little triangle on it, styrofoam is not recyclable. Second thing is clothing. We're going to talk later about places you can put your clothing, your textiles, so they can be recycled, but not in the blue bin. And finally, tanglers, including plastic bags. A lot of folks like to put their recycling in a neat plastic bag, tie it up, and put it in the blue bin. But that is not the right way to do things because that plastic bag will either get caught in the truck when it gets dumped into the truck, gets tangled in the machinery, or it gets tangled at the facility where the recyclables end up eventually. So no tanglers, and then as we have in our picture here, plastic bags are an obvious tangler, but some folks put their hoses in the blue bin, wires, chains, so that's all bad for the equipment.
Is this on? Oh, good. We've got two of them that works. Somebody had told me, we've actually been able to visit a few of MRF's, MRF's material recycling facilities, and we've heard some great stories about, can you believe they put this in their recycling bin? Bowling ball. That's like the one that stands out for me.
Is that a candle pin or a tent pin?
I think the pins were in there too.
Right, this one. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. So Diane mentioned no plastic bags. The reason why we don't want plastic bags in the recycling it gums up the works. The recycling facilities have a very intricate system of turning, rotating pieces of equipment that's sorting all of our stuff, plastic bags, and the other tanglers like hoses and stuff. Just get in there and just mess it up. And we'll talk later about what you can do with your plastic bags, not in the blue bin. And I wanted to take a moment to point out, you might have seen, we have some stuff on display here that Charlie's put together for us about what you can't put in, what you can put in. A little bit over here on the side about composting, compostable materials. We'll get to that later. So feel free afterwards as well to come up and ask any of us. And we'll also have our Q&A. No food or liquid. Seems obvious. But, and this is, people, the questions that come up a lot are like, how clean does it have to be? It needs to be empty and sort of wiped out, rinsed out or wiped out. What we've seen in MRFs that we've gone to is cases where food hasn't been removed, and then it just starts to mold and just contaminates everything else and just makes it basically could ruin even the entire bale of recyclables. So the MRFs can't make money on that.
So in a minute, we're going to talk about the specifics of which items you can put in the blue bin, which are not recyclable. But we wanted to direct your attention to this website. And actually, there's a link on the lexingtonma.gov website, our town website. So if you don't have to write this down, but it's easy to remember, recyclesmartma.org. And you can type in anything. And it doesn't have to be like an official name. We'll show you in a second. I put in red Solo cup, those red beverage cups, and you can do it, yeah. But I mean, I guess my point with that website is as things change, if you're unsure about something, you can always go there and check, and it will tell you where to put it. And if it's not recyclable, they might even tell you some places you could donate it, or maybe it may not go to the curbside, but there are other places you could donate it that are needy.
Yeah, we found Recyclopedia to be a really, really great resource. So what you can imagine here is this is the result. I've put 3 different search results of the Recyclopedia up here. So one is the Solo cup, as Diane mentioned, that needs to go in the trash. Your plastic cutlery needs to go in the trash. I know this gentleman here had a question about, we've got some compostable cutlery, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But your plastic cutlery has got to go in the trash. This is new for us, shocking for us. It caused a whole bunch of reworking of the work we're doing at the schools about recycling and everything. But those cartons need to go in the trash. There's no market right now to get these recycled. That may change, and like Diane said, this is I think a great resource because as things change, it will be shown here, but just put them in the trash. If you say, oh shoot, I made a mistake and I'm in this habit and I still put it in my recycle bin, don't worry about it. It'll get sorted out. They will sort it out at the MRF, but the most important thing is to understand that this is not getting recycled, so think about what you're doing here.
What about clear colored plastic cups? Okay.
And I just want to make one comment about the cartons. When I found out about this, I changed my purchasing habits, so I stopped buying orange juice in a carton, and I started buying it either in a plastic bottle or a glass container. So this is as we talk about these things, obviously these are things you can do with your dollar to stop voting for items like the cartons that don't get recycled. And I did want to say, just so you know, the red cup, that's styrofoam. It's polystyrene, so that's why it's not recyclable. It looks like it should be, and if you look at the bottom, there's a number, but it's not recyclable.
So for the styrofoam is not recyclable. We'll have questions later, but because the gentleman in the suspenders did speak up, I changed my slides and I got this slide in for you. Plastic cups, it doesn't show up very well, but these iced coffee, clear plastic cups can be recycled. You'll notice that we say, please empty all liquids, and the straws and the lids go in the trash. Okay. To geek out a bit, there are some clear cup, like not every clear cup was created equal. Some clear cups are made from number 6, as Diane mentioned, polystyrene. That cannot be recycled. But your Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee, your Starbucks iced coffee, your iced coffee cups can be recycled. Please empty it. Don't include the straw in the lid. Your paper coffee cup, trash. And the lid.
But that's because it's lined with plastic. And I believe, for an example, I think Starbucks, I saw an article that Starbucks was running a contest. They're trying to move to compostable coffee cups, and I'm sure some other coffee establishments might use compostable coffee cups. So I would say just try to look inside and see if there's if it looks like it's insulated with some plastic. At the high school last week, they were serving hot chocolate in these cups, and I questioned the food service folks, are these compostable? And they in fact were compostable, because Whitson's has been fantastic in moving so much to compostable. So I would say it's changing all the time.
So plastics, they're not, like I said, they were not all created equal. So this picture show, your jugs of dishwashing liquid and juice bottles, yogurt tubs, all those kinds of things, emptied, rinsed or wiped out. Great, put those in the blue bin. And as we were saying, if you're in doubt, go to recyclesmartma.org. And we didn't want to get too much into the numbers, but if you can remember 1, 2, and 5, 1, 2, and 5 are good. Everything else not good. It gets kind of confusing because sometimes bags are labeled with two, but those don't go in your recycle bin.
But you can bring it to the supermarket collection. So Stop and Shop, Market Basket, Whole Foods, Best Buy, you name it. Most of them have bins at the entrance. And I brought these actually because you're probably thinking plastic bag, those thin plastic film that like Market Basket used to use every day. But it also counts for bread bags. You can recycle these. These are, I think, number 2 or number 4. And then I have this other bag. You just have to look at the bag. A lot of them have those numbers, and they can be put in there with the other plastic film bags.
But not in the blue bin.
Not in the blue
Not
bin.
in your blue bin.
At
Do
the
not
supermarket,
put bags in
they
your
have
blue bin.
they have like bins in the usually right by the door in the supermarket. I think Stop and Shop, it's kind of a separate room where they collect the bottles and cans here in Lexington. But at Market Basket, it's right by the door. But it definitely is not going in the blue bin.
What about bags in cereal boxes? Can you take those to the supermarket?
Yeah. So yes, can we cover that a little bit later? Thanks. Sorry, because we want to get on with our glass. Put your glass again empty, rinsed or wiped out in your recycle bin. You may have heard there have been some challenges recently with markets for glass, but it's still something that should be recycled.
Lids on.
Lids on, lids off.
Really?
Yeah.
With metal?
Why don't we come back to
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah, we'll come back with
Please
questions.
Let them go through their presentation, and then we'll get to questions with the panel after Robert's spoken.
Thanks, Marcia. So we'll take questions afterwards. Thanks. A lot of talk going around paper and cardboard. Cardboard still has value. That value goes down when it gets wet, really super soggy or soiled. But you can still put that in your bin. But again, we had covered this. Paper coffee cups feel like they're paper coffee cups, but as Diane mentioned, they usually have a plastic lining. That's why they're not a true paper product. And that's the same reason why the milk cartons and the juice cartons are a problem, because you have a layer of plastic, a layer of paper, and another layer of plastic. And we do have a lot of bins that you can drop off in town as well. If you've got like super big, I don't know, you've got a new TV or something and you've got some large cardboard, that you can drop that off rather than trying to fold it into your recycle bin.
And the other benefit is it's a covered bin, so you don't have to worry about it getting wet.
Metals actually have a pretty consistent value, but it has to be something that can be sorted. So you don't. I mean, like there's some of the no examples here. There's like a metal chain, or these odd shaped metal things. You don't want to put those in your recycle bin, but your cans of vegetables, fruits, that kind of thing. Aluminum cans, all of those, again, emptied and wiped or rinsed out, those can go into your bin.
And so at the bottom there's scrap metal, so those chains or utensils I see over there, they can all go actually to Hartwell. There's a big kind of dumpster looking container where they accept scrap metal, so grills, bed frames, curtain rods, gutters, ladders, pots and pans, that's all collected by the town. So I'm starting on number 3 here, but obviously we take our yard waste to Hartwell, but there's also a shed there that collects mercury-containing products, CFL, fluorescent bulbs, etc. We talked about the cardboard. There's also a container there for bikes. If you don't want your bike anymore, you can donate it to the company or this organization, Bikes Not Bombs. There is a Bay State textiles bin at Hartwell. There's also bins at every school in Lexington. So you can bring fabrics, old clothes, sneakers, stuffed animals. Stuffed animals are always tough because you don't want to throw them in the garbage, but no one will really take them. They won't take them like cradles to crayons or whatever. So this is a way to repurpose them. And if you mention certain organizations, any school PTA, I think Lex Farm, you had a list that's composting, sorry. If you bring it to the school, actually the PTO gets a benefit though for Bay State
School
textiles.
does,
Yeah, the
not
school.
The PTA, the school. The school.
Okay, so books, you can actually donate it here to Cary Library, or there's a bin there at Hartwell for More Than Words. Rocks or concrete, if you had a construction project and you had some concrete you needed to dispose of, or rocks, you can bring in to the facility at Hartwell. And finally, there's a disposal point for flags if you need to
And
dispose
Robert,
of
if we
flags.
got anything incorrect, you be sure to correct us. We just got all this wonderful stuff. I did want to say a couple things about the textiles. This is this organization and many organizations. They take what they'll do is if it's still usable clothing, then it will go to like a resale shop. If it's like a sock that's got one too many holes, you really can't patch it anymore, that will generally become fill for other things like car seats or the fill for the chairs you're sitting on. So that's why it can take even stuff that's not wearable or the stuffed animals that no one's gonna love anymore. So everything that you put in there, as long as it's not wet or moldy, it will be used for something. So we think that's a much better way to dispose of what you're not going to be using anymore, rather than having it get sent to the incinerator. Okay, so we went through a lot, and we probably went through it kind of fast. We still have a few more slides left. But we wanted to emphasize here, and I know we've said it a few times, but even recycling, like recycling isn't the solution. Even if we could recycle every single thing, that's not the solution. The solution, because recycling, as we say, is not without its own cost. And you can't recycle something forever, right? You can't take a water bottle and recycle it back into a water bottle 100 times. They can do that maybe once, and then it's got to, be put downcycled, as they say, into something else. So we sort of think it's really important to have this mindset when this is great that you want to be a good recycler, but you should sort of expand your mindset a bit and just think about there is no way for everything that you use, and just be more aware of it.
Okay, so first start at the beginning, and when you're at the takeout place picking up your food, you may not need, if you're going home to eat it, you may not need all those packets of utensils and all those soy sauce packets. So speak up and say no thank you. You may want to bring your own bag instead of getting all the plastic bags with the food in it. You may want to bring your own containers, as some of our friends do, to the restaurant. You may want to bring your own containers when you go eat in a restaurant. If you know you're going to have leftovers, you can put that food into that your own personal container instead of taking that styrofoam clamshell. I mean, there are all sorts of things to think about. Freebies is another thing. If you're at a fair or some kind of a event where they're giving out free things. Do you really need it? What are you going to do with it when you get home? Is it going to go in the trash within a day? So maybe decline it. If you decline it, then if it's a company or an organization and they have all these leftovers and they said, gee, maybe we shouldn't have ordered those in the first place. Maybe we should think of another way to spread our brand or name. And then the last thing that we have on this list anyway is buying in bulk. So instead of going to the store once a week and getting the small bottle of aspirin, maybe you want to get a larger size container so you don't have so many little plastic bottles, but even finding ways in bulk where you have less packaging in general.
And it can be, because I've seen this happen within my own family, because I'm I don't know, this may be true for Diane as well, but I'm the sort of the lead on this in the family. And sometimes it can be hard to say no, to feel like, oh no, but you can say it in a really nice way, like, no thanks, I don't need that bag, I'm fine, thank you so much. And it can turn into a really nice conversation. And it may sound odd, but once you do it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But just do it. Just try it. Trust me.
I have another prop here saying no to the straw. I have a metal straw on my keychain. So if you're in a store and you can say, nope, I don't want a straw. I have my own straw, and then you can bring it home and wash it and use it again.
Some more stuff. Did you guys know that the community center has a little fix-it shop? Oh, everyone's okay. That's great. Well, use it. This is just another way to sort of it kind of ties in. I know some of you maybe you've seen the story of stuff, but the idea is that maybe you don't have to buy a lot of stuff for people. Gift experiences, that kind of thing, or maybe get creative. If you do have a really special gift that you want to give, get creative about how you wrap it. Maybe use some newspaper or something like that. And those shoes that you love, just fix them. Don't go out and get new shoes. So there's a lot of really cool companies that are thinking about this stuff. And thinking about waste and thinking about how to reduce it. So you don't necessarily have to, I mean, you don't have to use these companies, but we just wanted to let you know that they're out there. And the other thing I wanted to say is, you can, let's go back to bar soap.
Lynn's still here. She told us that her kids didn't know what bar soap was, right? They're so used to doing the liquid soap, right? And that you want to say your story?
I mentioned that the bar soap has a compact and they smell good, and I had to teach my kids how to use the bar soap. That was really funny because they grew up with
They grew up with liquid soap, so they didn't know how to use a bar soap. And what I figured out just last month is that they actually sell shampoo and conditioner in bar shape. So you don't even have to use any bottles at all, no plastic. So the company is called Ethic. You can order from Amazon.
Thanks, Lynn.
I did. I tried, and it's really great.
Thanks. But the idea is that there are, I mean, just there are a lot of companies out there that are thinking about this and are trying to do the right thing. So it's really, it's kind of fun to try some of this new stuff too.
So someone just texted me yesterday and asked me, what do I do with all my plastic hangers? I'm getting rid of these. I don't know what to do with them. I can't put them in my recycle bin, right? I said, no. But here's a list of places that you could post, and somebody might need those plastic hangers, as an example. There are all sorts of Yahoo groups, on Facebook groups, Craigslist, places that you can give it away for free. But there are needy people out there. Oftentimes, someone's trash is another person's treasure. So it's worth it to take a few minutes and post it out there and see if there's someone out there that needs it.
Yeah, and if you're you have a neighborhood community email list, or I mean, it doesn't have to be these, but any sort of community that you're a part of, ask around. You'd be surprised what people will want to use, and isn't that great for it to not get into the trash? I've actually also used sort of my sort of network to just borrow things. And I need a 10 by 10 tent, once or twice a year. Why don't I just borrow one that's already out there? That's another way that you can use these this community and these groups. Oh yes, I love that term. Donate, don't dispose. So again, I mean, I don't know. You probably all know about the Goodwill truck that's behind Walgreens. There's organizations that will pick it up from your porch too, if it's too hard to get to Goodwill. In the same vein, we have here about the Bay State textile bins that are at there's one at Hartwell and there's one at each of the Lexington public schools. But we didn't mention this before, but if it's hard for you to get whatever it is, those heavy bags of stuff out to the bins, we do now have a curbside pickup of textiles. Those are the pink bags. It's by a company called Simple Recycling. That's still going well, right? Still going, at least. Yes. And then we just wanted to mention that the town website has more resources about donate, don't dispose, or how do I get rid of that. We are, or the town, I should say, is working to update that when new information becomes available. So that's a great resource to use as well. I know we don't have them listed here, but we will, whoever has left your email with Marcia, where'd Marcia go? She's got a green clipboard. If you want a copy of the electronic copy of this presentation, get your email to her. And so that presentation will have links to all of the websites in here.
This presentation is also being filmed on Lex
It's also being filmed by Lex Media.
And we can post it on the GWAC website.
And Ricky's offering to post it on the GWAC website as well. So we'll have this information all around. Yes, rot. I love rot.
This is our favorite.
We had to come up with another, reduce, reuse, recycle. We had to, what do we call diverting your food waste from your trash into composting? Rot. It depends on, obviously depends on the household, but you can, 35 to 60% of your, the weight of your trash is probably food waste. Your potato peels, that yogurt that went moldy that you forgot about, the bread crust that you burnt. And there's two ways that you can do this. One way is to compost at home, which you can get that's the black bin at the top for $25 at Hartwell. You pick them up?
Purchase it at 201 Bedford Street.
You purchase it at 201 Bedford and pick it up at Hartwell. This is going to be for just fruits and vegetables, no dairy, no meat, unless you're a super duper home composter. But if you want to make it even less work for yourself, you can get a curbside pickup. There's a bunch of different companies. Black Earth is pretty, big in the community right now because they're picking up at the schools, and have actually done a lot of a lot for our community. Picked up at a few discovery days and other events around town. So, but by no means you wouldn't have to go with Black Earth. There's other companies that you can go with as well. And you can get, I don't know, Robert, when are we going to get some more free bins?
They have been ordered, and hopefully they're in early next week.
Yes! So you can get your free, lovely 13-gallon curbside bin that you see. Oh, there's an example here. It's about that size. You know, speaking of not buying stuff and giving experiences or good gifts, Black Earth is a great gift. I actually gave it to a very good friend of mine that moved into Lexington. We gave her that as a housewarming gift.
So in addition, just to highlight this, you can put in your pizza boxes, give them to Black Earth, bones, all the compostable goods they may use. You can put them where you can't put them in your backyard compost. Popsicle sticks, wooden chopsticks, all sorts of things that, again, is getting diverted out of your trash, out of the incinerator, ultimately out of the landfill, and into Black Earth's compost facility, which obviously they're making soil that then you might see at Ace Hardware. They're selling it all over town at the end of the process.
Oh, and I wanted to mention, we didn't have that up there, but Black Earth, if you do sign up for Black Earth, if you put in the referral section any one of the 9 Lexington public schools or Lex Farm Community Nursery School and Temple Isaiah, I hope I have them all. Black Earth is willing to was going to donate $10 to that organization for signing up with them. So we think that's a great thing as well. You can feel really good about that. And we think that there's about 1,000 residents right now, close to it, that are doing this. So that's 9-10% of 9-10% of Lexington. But wouldn't it be great if it was a lot more than that? If we could remove 35 to 60% of the waste that we generate from going to an incinerator. It also, by the way, if the less food, because food is heavy and wet, the less food that you have in the incinerator, it can actually operate more efficiently. It doesn't have to burn as much fuel. Okay.
So with the Black Earth compost, it is really handy during the parties you have at home, because if you buy everything compostable, that's what I do. Everything goes into the brown yard bag. Our guest doesn't have to worry about taking the food waste separately, and you can just put it all together, and it's just so handy during party times also. So I also highly recommend Black Earth.
Thank you. So, finally, you want to take this?
I mentioned earlier, using your purchasing power to vote for sustainable products. So that's one way we can advocate for a better future for all of us. Look for paper and plastic products that are made with recycled material, so you're improving the market for that. Choosing products with the least amount of packaging. Reward the manufacturers who are being thoughtful about how they're packaging their product. And then secondly, send feedback to the companies. I actually had a weird story where I was at a store and there was a cabbage. I was buying cabbage, and every single one of the cabbages was wrapped in plastic. And I sent an email to this company that had wrapped my head of cabbage in plastic. I said, why is this necessary? I'm sure your cabbage is great, but the plastic is really bumming me out. So send the feedback to the company so they know that we want change.
Yes, that actually, you may think it doesn't make a difference, but it does add up. It does add up, and companies want to hear from their consumers. So the other thing I wanted to mention about looking for things or trying to buy things that are made out of recycled material, that's what's going to help the market and help the market locally. So finally, we have one more thing to talk about in terms of advocacy. There is currently a solid waste master plan draft for the state of Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. You can comment on it. The public can comment on it. They want your input. So if you've got some time to think about it and send a note off, it will really help.
There's also a meeting, I think it's on November 6th in Wilmington. You can go to a meeting and actually get the presentation, I believe, and give them comment directly and in person. But there are email addresses you can send. And I am laughing because I told my husband maybe a year ago even, or 2 years ago, if you told me I was spending my Friday night reading the Solid Waste Master Plan for Massachusetts, I would have thought you were crazy, but it is totally worth it. I highly recommend I'm not kidding, going to this website and taking a look. There's a lot of information in there even about 2018 and the kind of waste that the state has generated, including incinerator ash from the state. It's startling. So they have goals outlined for up to 10-year plans. So they have 2020, how they've made it to 2020, comparing to their goals, and then they have some goals outlined for the next 10 years. But take a look and see if they're aggressive enough. See what you think. If there are things that are missing, I think the more public input they get, the better.
Yeah, there's also a few, many I should say, state bills in the works. Some that are sponsored by our own local legislators that could use your support. So, without further ado, we are going to do a Q&A. This sort of wraps up what Diane and I are going to talk about. But we'd like to invite Robert Bodwin up to announce a couple of things and talk about some other stuff.
It is just tremendously rewarding to come to an event like this tonight and see, standing room only in many ways. It's great to see how much a community cares about trying to do the right thing as it relates to managing our resources in Lexington. So it's very gratifying. It's very rewarding to come out to this event. So thank you very much to the sponsors who put this event together and for doing all the research and putting that slide presentation together. It's a great group. The GWACRecycling group has been, I have a hard time keeping up with them, and I have an 8-year-old. So it's hard keeping up with these guys as far as wanting to do all the right things and try to move. The way I look at it is just little gradations. You start, you start moving, even if it's a half inch or a quarter of a ton, 200 pounds, you keep adding and adding, and before you know it, you've diverted another ton of material or put it in the right place. And so the emphasis on the quality of the material, I can't emphasize enough. Because what happens is that when the materials go to that MRF, to that materials recycling facility, and we have those residuals, they charge, that's part of the cost of recycling now. Before that was something that was pretty much the vendor ate, I guess you could say, in many ways, because it wasn't as bad, and now the stream has changed, and we'll get into that. So what I'd like to start with is having to do with the IQ program kickoff in April. So what we have done is the town has applied for a grant that's going to provide up to $30,000 to provide a great opportunity for us to go out and grab data and be able to work at the curb and basically work to clean up the recyclables. So the objective is to increase the quality of the municipal recycling programs, and we'll work on outreach and education, public meetings, social media, curbside feedback for 8 weeks, and also work aggressively to reduce the contaminants that we do see. Yes. So that's all right. The 8 weeks of feedback, we're going to get much more information on this when we get the rollout of the program. We're going to deal with an audit of the materials that go to the recycling facility to find out how much contamination that we do have. And then we'll also work to clean, maintain and clean the recyclables.
Excuse us for a moment. We have to go to our next president.
Yes, thank you. And the reason why I want to emphasize that we're doing a good job, you're all doing a good job in Lexington, is the sense that trash tonnage going back to a 4-year average from 1998 to 01 averaged almost a little over 11,500 tons. We've been able to reduce it, and we've been able to do a good job of maintaining that tonnage with additional households and additional population coming on in town. So that, I think, is a great trend, but there always will be additional households, additional trash that will come in. And on the recycling side, we've seen that we had a really good jump, and then it's come down over time. And a lot of that has to do with what we call the evolving ton. And there are no more newspapers in the recycle stream. It's just, they don't even have a category. They used to bail specifically the newsprint. And it's now a mixed paper, which has a much lower value. But I think on the good news on the horizon is that eventually paper plants in the United States are starting to be retrofitted so that they can take what they call a paper mix. Cardboard is still good as far as revenues, and as the ladies mentioned, actually plastics have a high value. The plastics that are acceptable, also what becomes problematic are certain recyclables and the waste. This just gives you an idea of what the municipal solid waste looks like. So you basically start with, we'll start with food, which is about 15%. Paper is almost still 26%. Yard trimmings, 13%. Wood, 6%. Rubber, leather, and textiles, almost 10. It's just a point down below 10%. I mean, it's 9.3%. That's a tremendous amount of materials, and that's why, and it has a good value. So that's why we're taking kind of a shotgun approach. The school started with the Bay State textiles programs at all of the schools. In fact, the container at Hartwell Avenue it does accept textiles. That goes into that program. And then we had the opportunity to roll out the pink bag program, in which residents can take that low value textile like a towel or all kinds of materials that you would think would be rags or even stuffed animals. That material will actually get diverted and get reused as a fluff material, as a stuffing material. So it has a good opportunity, and you can just put that stuff in the pink bag. Does anyone use the pink bag program in here? I think they have done at this point, they did one initial mailing, so I think, and they sent two pink bags in the mailer. So I know they're in the process of sending another mailer with 2 bags out, with 2 bags in the mailing. I'll complete the breakdown, the percentage breakdown. You can see the plastics are a substantial component of that, also 13%. Metals another 9%, and glass 4%. So part of the focus tonight is to deal with the organics and the food waste issue. As earlier discussed, food waste in the residential mix is a substantial component. It's been estimated 60% is a bit on that high. I would call that a bit high, but you're looking at basically almost a third of the waste stream. And that would include, you can also include like things like paper towels and things like, wet paper towels, that's carbon that can go in there. So each year, 50% of all produce in the United States is wasted. It's just an unbelievable number. 60 million tons, 160 billion worth of produce. I forget if this came from the EPA, but a family of 4 discards almost $1,600 worth of food annually. Just unbelievable numbers when you think of it. This is actually a food recovery hierarchy, which kind of goes back to the 7 R's in the sense of, source reduction, being reused for hungry people, feed animals. There's kind of a comeback of how, because the state put a ban on commercial organics at restaurants that generate a ton a week or more, we see now that there's actually, I think about a half a dozen animal feed facilities that are actually able to process that material. Industrial uses, composting, and then it makes it, in our case, it makes it to an incinerator, as we're not sending our trash to a landfill. So this is kind of a rehash of some of the components that they've talked about as far as, planning, storage, prep, and shop your fridge. It's my job is to go through the fridge once a week, because we also participate in a curbside pickup of the organic materials where I live in Ipswich, and that's my job. And it's amazing how much material we put out on a weekly basis. So we talked about food for donation. Again, the 2 types of compost bins that we sell for $25, which is a really good discount. A family of 4, if they're good composters, can divert 750 pounds of organics a year, conservatively. I don't know if anyone remembers these from, was this last year or the first year we did it, that we did the zero waste? This might have been the first year. We have the opportunity to utilize these zero waste stations. Most of the schools are using them. We've used them at scores of different types of events. And it's amazing because I made this mistake twice. So I think it was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. Each year in June they have that lunch. They have that celebration at the lower fields.
Elliot.
Yes.
Elliot.
And the first year I was able to work with the vendor to send one 10-yard dumpster. And it was remarkable how very little trash was generated at that event. We're talking about 2 major meals, barbecue, and in the daytime. I think 1,000 people. The first time I did it, I ordered a 30-yard roll-off. I went inside the roll-off. I was lost. There was a corner of it had trash in it. So now at least the next time I ordered it, I only ordered a 10-yard roll-off. So, and that also was very, very, there was very little trash in it, because most of it, I think we filled up 9 toters and I forget how many carts with the food waste. This is what the cart looks like. And this is one thing I'm really proud of my staff, because one of the issues that we had is that we have all this great equipment that we've been able to purchase at Hartwell Avenue. And we were getting worried because everyone has brush. Everyone. It comes in, the contractors bring it in, they pay to dispose of it. What do you do with all that ground wood chip? At one point, we were able to broker that material and basically make $30,000, $40,000 a year on just brokering the wood chips. The cogeneration facilities up in Maine closed, or they're no longer taking that material. So what did we do? We took all of that ground wood and we basically processed it and made bark mulch. In the last year and a half, we have sold almost $150,000 of your brush. And we took it, we made a natural, we made a black, and so now we're not at the whim. I was worried about it was going to cost us $40 a ton to get rid of all of this material. And now we're actually selling it for $32 a cubic yard. great in the springtime. I don't know of any other community doing that. That's not even having to do with all of the compost and materials. In fact, just the other day, in the beginning of October, we broke the $7 million mark in total revenues generated from that site. So that pays for personnel, equipment, and operations. And it's just a great place. It's a sustainability park between the solar energy, the material resource development, and I know there's more that we can do. And just to kind of talk a little bit of what's on the horizon and what we're planning and looking into, we're going to continue to use the RDF funds. Last year we made $18,900 from a grant that is performance-based that requires us to do X, Y, and Z. Obviously continue to support the Green Team's efforts to promote zero waste activities. One of the things we're looking at, even though we talked about glass being only 4 or 5% of the recycle stream, is that how can we reduce the amount that actually goes to the recycling facility? So one of the plans is we put in for a grant for a roll-off that will, once we're able to get that roll-off, we're going to request, and again, it's voluntary, in which residents can drop off their glass into this container, and then we can send it to a processor up in Groton, and then they will basically process that mixed glass, that mixed cullet, and then the goal is to work with engineering so that they could utilize Lexington glass, pulverized glass, in a drainage project. And try to really close the loop. So we're starting, once we get that roll off, hopefully we'll have it, in place by the spring. And one thing that will be very helpful is that now we can go to the MRF and say, okay, we don't have, 4.5% of glass. Maybe it goes down only a point or 1 percentage point, but it's still a lot of tons. Glass is heavy. It's the heaviest of all of the materials, even though by volume it's only about 4%. So that's one of the things that's in process through the DEP. The other thing that I try to emphasize, I do this when I sign off on demolition projects, is that I sign off as a solid waste, as the Superintendent of Environmental Service, to recover the mercury thermostats, the old mercury thermostats. There are 100+ demos in Lexington a year. And the other component is how can, even though this is not part of the materials that residents put out, construction waste, how can we guide the resident or the contractor so that they can reuse those materials? And a lot of them do it already, but there are actually a couple of different, there's the Building Materials Resource Center in West Roxbury, there's also the Restore. And these are charitable organizations that recover these materials and can resell them to residents. Obviously, we're going to continue with the education and outreach of the composting and the compost units. Today, I had a mass save energy audit, and I was able to leverage. They not only just provided me with lights, I was able to leverage. I don't know if people are familiar with the energy audit. Basically we all pay for it in our utility bill. Even though in Ipswich we have a municipal electric light company, all the utilities basically provide this funds for you to have an energy audit. They did almost $3,500 worth of work today of super insulating my ceiling, the attic and a crawl space. And I only had to pay $700. So they were able to subsidize that, and it's basically they're saying it's less than a year in payback, especially based on the monies that get matched. So I can't emphasize enough the use of that. Even if you just get the standard audit, where they come in and they replace the lighting and those components. So that is pretty much it as it relates to the great programs and the great teamwork we have here in Lexington. So this is the part I dread, is the questions. Thank you so much.
One for the group. So questions, I want to thank everyone. And again, one of our sponsors, Lexington Global Warming Action Coalition, lexgwac.org, will be posting these slides. And there's a place that you can sign up where you can, on that green clipboard, that you can get more information from this presentation. Questions? Well, you raised your hand first. I'm going to go with you.
I tried to be quick. That was fantastic. So much to learn here. I'm wondering, back to your first slide, you mentioned the problem with China. And, you know, I've run into a lot of, you know, some people lately who just feel very discouraged about recycling because of that China situation. So I was wondering if any of you could speak more on that and where that's going. And maybe as part of that, I'm interested in the electronics. As we live here in the fast-moving information age, we all know that's a huge issue, and I didn't hear much about that tonight. So those two things. Thanks.
The China sword. I mean, basically, China has closed its gates to recycling at this point. But what the good news is, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're going to start seeing more investment into U.S. Recovery of the materials. So I think at this point, the MRFs have realized that, you know, that they have to process the materials and find their own markets. Now, they have found other markets that are overseas that are also beneficial, where they can move the mixed paper and they can move the cardboard and so on. But I think it's just part of doing business now. We just basically kind of, the issue is that I think everyone is waiting for the rebound, because recycling markets are a commodity market. And so they go up and they come down, and it's done it many times in the 18 years I've been here, but it just has been down for so long. And then I think what the other issue that kind of cluttered or exacerbated the problem was the contamination went up, and it went up with single stream. It's ironic that really in Lexington, we didn't go to single stream till really the first year with Harvey. But all of the MRFs, or the materials recycling facilities, have gone to single stream. So it's kind of a poison pill that we've all absorbed. I think the key component going forward is how can we collect the most amount of materials more efficiently. I was able to go to Sweden a few years ago, and I was just amazed how they're actually using facilities to recover the methane, and they're actually using the methane in the trash and recycling trucks. It's just unbelievable how they are able to do that. So that was the China sword is just part of doing business at this point. What is really interesting is that many of the Chinese companies are now buying the old mills in the United States. So they're going to begin to retrofit many of those facilities so they can produce the pulp, use the pulp to produce the products that they want to send back. So that's a bit frustrating in the sense that the American entrepreneurs haven't gotten into that business as much. The second question was? E-waste. E-waste, what we've seen is actually a great, significant reduction of the tonnage. We used to do almost 100 tons a year of that material. That was when we had the 3 or 4 collections a year. Now you have curbside pickup, and that material is going to a facility in Dover, New Hampshire called Universal Recycling Technologies, and those materials are recovered. What they can, the rigid plastic on the casing and the glass, they remove the leaded glass from the clear glass, and that material is being processed, and it's whatever can, I forget what the percentage is on what can be recycled. is being recycled and what can't is being landfilled. The other thing related to the electronics are the white goods. And the white goods are a relatively easy thing to recycle because it's just it's a non-ferrous metal or ferrous metal, and that material actually gets collected from your address. It goes to a roll-off at Hartwell. Once they fill that roll-off, that material goes to a recycling facility. White goods, refrigerator, washer, dryer, those kind of things.
Before we take a next question, there was somebody earlier that asked about, it was about recycling bags and cereal box liners. So yes, your cereal, this is from a box of Cheerios. This can go into the plastic bag recycling at the grocery store. I've got a little thing here you can look at, but we've also got a link on the website about plastic bag recycling. So I wanted to make sure to get to your question.
My question is, if you can recycle the cup of the clear Starbucks drink, why can't you do the lid if it's the same material?
That's a great question. The material recycling facilities that we were talking about earlier, they've got all of these rotating things, and they've got, in some cases, not lasers. What do they call the things where they're
Star screen.
The star screen, yes, where they can tell what kind of clear plastic is going through the system, and it shoots up.
Oh, the optical sorter.
The optical sorter. Thank you, Robert. An optical sorter that can push out certain items in the direction that they want. A straw or the cup lid is too small to basically get properly sorted.
Does that go for can lids also?
No, for the can lids, they have 2 ways of recovering the can lids, because everything really, when it comes in on the floor, it's been crushed a bit in the compaction trucks, then it gets kind of reprocessed. And the metal lids, they have a magnet for those metals, and for the non-ferrous, they have what is called an eddy current, which is like just a shot of electricity that sorts those aluminum cans.
We have a question over here from someone that's going to benefit from all of us doing a good job.
I think it's a broken toy. It's broken. You have to throw it away. And if you find the same one, you have to buy it on Friday.
Well, I think making sturdy toys is a good idea, and getting Mom one on Friday is also a good idea. We have a special guest with us this evening, Mike Barrett, who's one of our senators, although he's here not as a senator, but as...
Thanks, Marcia, very much, and thanks for folks for putting this on. Very impressive. You guys have all emphasized that the market's shifting quickly and is capable of changing. Some things are in fashion, out of fashion, in demand, out of demand. But my neighbors and I aren't changing our habits at the curb. We're putting out the same stuff that we were educated to put out when recycling began here in town. Is there any way of providing, do you want changes of behavior at the curbside, and is there a way of providing some sort of easy visual cues to remind us of what we should do and not do? I grant you that it's hard to get out the word if you're simply using retail communications like tonight, as important as they are, but is there any way to really, and should we try to propel people in some new directions? And then the second thing I want to say is I want to offer my help in your grants. You seem to be doing extremely well anyway. But if I can ever be of help in terms of writing a supporting letter, this is very impressive stuff, and I would love to be helpful.
Always can use more help.
I
think in terms of thinking about what we can do going forward, I think the Recycle IQ grant is something that Robert has been, he's on the verge of, in the next wave of the grant, he'll be applying, and we've been assured this can happen. But Robert, you want to tell us a little bit about it, or one of you guys? We've got two mics.
So just to point out, this is what Robert talked about earlier. We're going to be launching this in April. And as an example, there's a lot of components to the program, and outreach and education is the main thrust. So there are going to be mailers that go to, I believe, everybody in Lexington. There will be public meetings like this, but like you said, it's hard to get people out. Social media, which is all on the rage. Everybody's getting everything from social media. We'll have ads in papers and all sorts of ways to communicate. And then these are the, I don't know if you noticed this before, but these are the oops tags that will be placed in your recycle bin if you're not doing as we asked tonight. And I think we said 8 weeks. So I think we met with the woman from the Mass. Yeah, from Mass DEP. And she said that research shows that people need to be reinforced 8 times before they actually absorb the information. So there will be an 8-week process where their people's recycling will be reviewed, and it will be a gentle reminder with those oops tags to just remind people about contamination, plastic bags, and the types of plastics and metals and glass that belong in the blue bin.
Right. I mean, I think the key component of this, I look at this as an opportunity to work with the residents so that we can, and then we can have some lessons learned of what did we find out from the 8 weeks. I've heard from Waste Management where our there's a recycling facility in Billerica where actually our recycling is going there. And I think the preliminary estimate on an audit was right between 8 and 10%. Yeah, about 10%. I mean, 10% was contaminants. That was kind of the residual, kind of the lid in the straw and those kind of, even the cartons. That's frustrating to see because we built that was a very strong, it was a very good market. And I think you mentioned about the issue of changing habits. Did the same thing in Ipswich because we use a different vendor. But it's the same thing. They don't want those cartons. And so now I buy the milk jug, the number 1 or number 2 plastics on that, and at least I know that has value. That actually has value. For example, just as a commodity, this might be good. I didn't have a chance to get this in the presentation, but if you look at the 1 ton of recyclables, where you break it down into what it all is, cardboard is almost 13%, and that had a value of $35 a ton. The residential mix that we were talking about, which used to be a lot of the old newspaper, but is now the junk mail and so on and so forth, is almost 43%, and that had a value of negative $11. That used to have a value of $120, $130 a ton. The aluminum, it's only 0.4% of the ton of that ton, yet it's $825 a ton. So that actually is a positive $3.30. When we look at PET plastic, that's 3.1% of the recycling ton. And that's a positive commodity value of $280 a ton, and so the value on that is $8.68. This is as of June of 19. The ferrous, the aluminum tuna cans, which are also being replaced, as you can see, they go into the packets, and everything is in a packet. Granola, everything is going in those sealable packets. Those are not, at this point they're not. So they're not acceptable in the curbside bin. But there are other programs that you can actually mail them to a company that takes them and makes bags out of them, actually. So let me just finish this up because this is very interesting. The ferrous steel, 2.2%, $102 a ton, and we're getting $2.24, value on a ton. High density polyethylene clear, 1.1%, $260 a ton value, which is almost $3. High density polyethylene natural, which is the kind of translucent one. Oh no, that's the colored one. I'm sorry. That's another 1.1%, $412 in commodity value, which is $4.53 to the positive. Mixed plastic, which is really the rigid plastics that we see, and that's about 9%, and that's a positive value of $85 per ton, but it's less than $1 because it's not as much. Glass, 16.7% of the ton, and that has a negative $55 right now. That's why I want to get a glass bin at Hartwell. So if we basically we can reduce that burden of the glass and actually have it go into a product rather than be used as a daily landfill cover. And then the residue is almost, they basically, even though they use a single stream mix, they consider that has an even higher than 10%, which ends up costing us a fair amount of a negative $1. That is almost like a $15 charge just for the residual. So recycling right, you can't. It's better to have. You hear the saying, less is more. It's better to have the right stuff in that bin rather than more that creates more waste.
So
And
what's
on
the
that-
total-
on that topic-
What's the total of all of that? In other words, when you put a ton into the facility.
That's right.
What's the total net?
That is a negative $1.
But, part of what we wanted to emphasize in our presentation is about reducing what we buy and be careful about what we buy so that we're using our purchasing power to reduce the amount of waste we're going to create. And also to give feedback, as Diane was saying, to companies on the way they package. And ask for packaging that is recyclable. Ask for, magazines that don't come in plastic bags and that are then instantly thrown out. We as consumers need to make that clear. I'm going to go back and do some more. I know this gentleman. Did you still have? Okay.
So in regards to the contamination rate, just so I understand things, how that contamination affects how the garbage or the recyclables is actually used. So if you have, is that 10% contamination, is that per household or is that per ton of material?
10% of that ton.
Okay, so that means if 10 tons go in, 1 ton is not usable and actually has to go to a landfill.
That's correct.
Incinerator first.
Incinerator, okay.
That's right.
It will be burned completely. The ash goes to the landfill, which is often full of toxic materials, the ash, the residual.
Okay. And one other question. You mentioned that more of these plants processing plants are going to be coming online, possibly?
Well, that's kind of a question for another discussion. What's interesting to see is in Maine, they are developing a couple of recycling facilities that are actually taking and recovering 100% of that ton. And what they're doing is they do a good job of separating the materials. And what they're able to do is collect the food residue and actually put that through a digester where they basically make fertilizer from that, and they also generate energy from it. And that's way up in Bangor. So they have like 34 communities. It's called Fiberite. And what we have in Massachusetts is kind of the old conventional MRF that is specifically built for single stream.
and disposal options are landfilling or waste to energy.
Robert, is that a public-private entity up there in Maine?
I believe it's a private facility. Great opportunity maybe for a tour, although that's kind of far.
We're always up for a
But yeah,
trip.
so the
public-
municipalities have signed a contract to send their trash and recycling to this facility. For, I think it's like a 5 or 10-year contract.
Ah, interesting. Okay, there's so many great questions.
So it almost seems wrong to not put your newspapers in a brown bag. And of course, some of the options are, to go electronic, or there's catalog choice. Does everybody know that organization? You can sign up and, not get all these catalogs and stuff. It's a good service project for our church kids to, sign people up to do that. Anyhow, so do I understand that the newspaper is better put in the recycle bin, or should we be composting it?
I mean, if you compost, you can also, shred it.
Just the black and white
Yeah,
stuff, though.
but the newspaper is good to go into the recycle bin.
Oh.
It's still, the issue is that it's
Hold
it's
it
not
up.
as valuable.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you can put it in your composting, but you can also put it in your blue bin.
Let me just add to
Yeah.
that, as these GWACRecycling compost prefers that you don't, any paper that's contaminated with food waste, that kind of thing should go in the compost. But they want all the other paper that's not contaminated with food waste to go into the recycling.
Oh, they do?
They,
Okay.
yeah.
It's too much.
Too much.
Will the printed materials for that program also be printed in Mandarin and Hindi?
We can do that.
I think it's really important in town.
I would agree.
Great idea. You can do it, or you will? The state
You will.
The state has done multilingual programs like this before, so it is something we've discussed.
A question for our Senator Mike Barrett, who led the effort in Massachusetts on putting a price on carbon to address climate change. Is there any discussion about putting a price on plastic?
Well, there will be now. For years, we've tried to expand the bottle bill, and I'm curious as to where proposals to expand the bottle bill to include single-use reusable water bottles would stand in this discussion. Is that something that should be pushed double time?
Yes.
Is it something that's less relevant?
One thing I will say is that at the schools and all the events that we've been running, we try to discourage all purchasing of single-use water bottles. We use coolers and compostable cups. Just the whole idea of buying more plastic, we're discouraging in every way we can. So I'm not sure what the priority is as far as putting forth the bottle bill, when the way we see it, the whole water bottle, individual servings. I mean, and then the other thing obviously is the kids all use reusable water bottles they fill. We're also trying to work with the schools to get water bottle fillers. So those are, again, your reusable water bottle, and go to the water fountain and use our very high quality water here in Lexington and fill that up, rather than purchasing single-use water bottles in the cafeteria. So that's what our stance is.
Water bottles, the PET bottles, half-liter ones that are given at the school during lunchtime, has significantly reduced ever since Green Team has been putting a lot of effort spreading words of not using those water bottles and bringing their own.
Marcia, I just wanted to say one other thing. Senator Barrett had a second question about how do we get this information, or how do we remind ourselves about what the right thing to do is. I'm just going to do another plug. There's a green clipboard going around that we're collecting emails that we will send you this presentation and all of the, it has links to everything in it. And I will personally, if you can't deal with the links, I will personally get that information to you. If you make a, make some indication on here so that we can have your contact information and we can get you the information that will help you ahead of the Recycle HQ, like the mailers that are going to go out probably in April. If you want something sooner, note that on
Are
there.
you at the Bedford DPW or are you at Hartwell Ave? Where can I find you?
At LexingtonGreenTeams.org. At the high school every Monday and Tuesday. At Clark Middle School every Wednesday.
The LPS Green Teams there are all volunteers that are throughout the school system, all elementary, middle schools, and the high school. And so both Diane and Cindy are Green Team leaders that have done this all out of the goodness of their heart. And working with Robert, we're making progress. And working with the schools in Chartwells, the schools have been a real. Oh, I do that. That shows my age. It's now Whitson's is the food service. So we have till 8:45. So I would like to go back and get some more of our great questions. I'm going to pass this down to you.
Thank you. The work that you three have done is so impressive so far, and I wanted to say that there have been times when I wished for a waste guru in town. My town's different, but in town. And I wondered if in your social media, if you thought of maybe a blog or a question and answer kind of email thing, that people could bring their specific questions.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I don't want to speak for Diane or Robert either, but I'm kind of proud of being a trash lady. But you make a very, very good point. So as Marcia mentioned, those of us that are here outside of Robert are part of a coalition called LPS Green Teams. We do have a website and we have an email. We can, if you've left your email here, we can give you that information as well, and we'd be happy to answer any type of questions. And if we have to, send it up the chain to Robert, we'll filter it for you.
Well, the other positive thing that we're just in the process of relaunching the website for the environmental services, and one of the things I was able to do was to get the input from the people that use the program every day. So we're in the process of working with the IT department to make edits and update the website so that you have the most up-to-date information on the website, even though things have changed. And it's really important to get that input. So I think if you're welcome to send your input to me. My email address is on the town website. Always happy to solve one little problem every day. Hopefully I'm doing more than one.
We have another question back here. A couple of very pragmatic questions. The recyclables, I know that we're supposed to avoid using 3s, 4s, 6s plastics. When we have them, because we wind up having them now, throw them right in the trash?
Right in the trash.
Okay.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Okay, because it seems like wasted water to clean them out.
Yeah, when in doubt, throw it out.
Okay. And then a very simple question. Thank you for telling me now that I have a place to take my soiled and torn jeans to. When we put stuff into those bins, do we need to separate out what we think is reusable clothing from what we think is rags?
No sorting necessary in the Bay State textile bins that are at the school or the pink bags that you put on your curbside. Just can't be wet or moldy. That's it.
And then a question for Robert, which is a little more. Do we pay the recycling company a fixed amount to recycle and they deal with all these problems you're talking about? Or is Lexington in some sense having to kick back and pay for these problems? That's just a financial question.
Well, we don't use kickback. The town does now pay a recycle fee, starting with the first year of the Harvey contract. So, so we use the commodity pricing right now of this, and we pay a $70 processing fee. So when the markets hopefully change in the future, it also will now, because we're sharing the risk with this, that if in the beginning of the contract with Harvey, it was only a $60, it was only they were actually making $15 a ton instead of a -1. So we were only paying $55 because we're using the equation of that. So we've seen things go down even a little bit more since we started the contract with Harvey. So the risk and reward now has been a bit more, not just transparent, but it's spread a bit more. Honestly, I think they're crooks in the sense of now we're paying for our trash, now we're paying for our recycling. I mean that in a way that it's hard to see. I never thought we were going to see. They're making money on all of this material, so it's very challenging to see how the markets have changed so much. So.
Yeah, there's room here for improvement and public-private type things going on. Here's another question here. Still have it?
So I've heard of programs like TerraCycling where you can recycle things that are not generally recycled, curbside recycling, and I was wondering if there are programs like that in Lexington.
What was the question?
TerraCycle.
So there's a company called TerraCycle that has made it its mission to try and recycle everything that it possibly can. But TerraCycle works in two different ways. They have these free brigades, so they partner with different manufacturers. For example, they'll partner with Colgate, and Colgate will pay to recycle toothbrushes and floss containers and that kind of stuff. And if you're an organization that can get on this brigade, you can mail it to them, collect it and mail it to them for free, and they will get it recycled. They also have a for-purchase system where you can basically, you buy a box from them and you fill it with whatever, you buy the kitchen waste box or the, your granola package box. You fill it up with all of those recyclables and ship it to them for free. You have to buy the box. And they'll recycle it. TerraCycle as a company has committed to not basically using everything that they possibly can and not landfilling or incinerating anything that they're shipped. But it can on the purchasing side. It costs about $100 for a box that's about yay big, round, and yay tall for certain things. So it's. I don't know of any, we have, some of the PTAs have worked together and pooled some PTA funds and have some drives to collect certain things, like markers and mechanical pencils and stuff like that, a recycling drive, but there aren't any that I'm aware of regularly in Lexington.
I just have a few rapid-fire questions.
We have 5 minutes, and then we'll all have to agree that we'll go out without a fight.
Just one-word answers will probably do. So if wet yogurt containers, it's okay if they're wet that go in the recycling because it'll rain on them anyway, right?
That's right.
Okay. Yes. And do we have to separate paper from cardboard?
No.
No. Okay. And is there any kind of paper that's not okay?
So any paper that's not okay.
I mean, aside from food waste.
No.
Receipt,
I'm sorry?
Receipt paper.
Oh, receipt paper. Yeah, actually, I think that's a good idea. That should go in the trash. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's a good one. Receipt paper.
Yeah, but what about, like, well, it doesn't matter, that's Tuesday. So oatmeal boxes, like those round cylindrical, can they be recycled?
Yeah, the cardboard, yeah, it's a
Outlined
paper.
with anything, right?
Some of them are?
Some of them are lined.
So if in doubt, throw it out, okay.
Yep.
Do textiles need to be washed before they go into the,
Preferably, but as long as they're dry, that's the key
and dry and
component.
not moldy.
Right.
Not
but like
super-
what happens with me is I put my, I put the dirty sock, I put the socks on, then I get a hole in it, and then I put it in the wash, and I forget that they're dirty, but I forget they have a hole in it, and I go through the cycle over and over again. It's like, can I just throw them in the textiles? Or, okay.
For you, Judith, yeah, that's okay.
About the compostable plastic forks and knives and all that kind of stuff, I understand that there are PFAS chemicals in some of them, and they're not really compostable. So
There are no PFAS chemicals in PLA. In the PFAS, so I don't want to get into too much detail, but there is some chemical that was found that was in fiber-based bowls and things like that. The definitely dangerous chemical was stopped being used in about 2011, 2013. There's not enough research yet on the other type of chemical, so they think that it doesn't completely break down in composting, but there's not definitive data yet. But also BPI something. It's an agency that certifies compostability, and they have decided that they are going to they will no longer certify products with any version of PFAS, starting now, I think, starting in this year. So basically, if you're buying compostable stuff that's certified by BPI, then you're fine.
Yeah, so look for that certification. Charlie, as one of the organizers, you have a question, and then our library is letting us know that it's time for us to leave.
So one actually very quick announcement: if you want to see how far you can go with reducing and want to be inspired, there's a woman named Bea Johnson who has a blog and a website called Zero Waste Home. And she's very proud of the fact that her family's entire waste for a year she can fit into a single mason jar. Yep, Bea Johnson. We'll include a link. She's got a wonderful video on YouTube that she talks about what she and her family does, and we'll send it out in the material we send out. But her name is Bea Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our presenters and to all of you who come out. Thank you to the library also.
It's